Guys, how are we doing? Welcome to the supporters show. So I'm having to do it under this street light, like a proper sketchy bloke, because I forgot my torch. So everyone's going to be wondering, what the fuck is he doing? Anyway, listen, I want to talk about, just a quick one this morning. I want to talk about the worst case scenario. If you like, it's like that doomsday mentality. When something happens, you always think the worst of what's going to happen in that situation. And that can be like a really detrimental emotional process that you take yourself through. I've spent many a years thinking worst case scenario. And I'll give you some examples, in fact, and you might laugh at some of them, but one of them was when I used to have any type of stomach pain or pain in my torso area, I would always think that's bowel cancer. And that come off the back of losing one of my best friends who died of bowel cancer when she was just 38. So that was always my worst case scenario, triggered from that particular point. Or if I lose a customer, if a mastermind member goes, I think, blimey, that's the business over. So then I automatically double down on doing more work, thinking the business is over. Worst case scenario. And I even used to, back in the day, think, I'd have an argument. Nah, that's the relationship over. Worst case scenario. I used to be fucking to the absolute extreme of this type of mentality. And I think it's a very difficult mentality to get out of, and it can be super detrimental because it can create emotional thought processes and emotional decisions that will really not benefit you whatsoever in terms of the long run. You'll end up drinking, you'll end up following that process. So if you think it's worst case scenario, you'll get your brain to go into this pattern of thinking that is actually the truth. So you think, oh my God, my business is over, or you've got bowel cancer, or your missus is going to leave you, like 3 examples I used. You go into thinking that is reality. And then everything you do, enough, dickhead. And then everything that you do is based around that thought. So you basing your life thinking, I used to literally go around thinking I had bowel cancer. Like, that's mental, right? I usually used to think I had days left before my business crumbled. And it's a horrible place to be. And I just want to share the way that I used to get out of it. And I used to have this before I go into that, there is always this case of a couple of weeks down the line, a couple of months down the line, you look back and reflect on that particular period of your life and you think, what was I worried about? What was I stressed about? And all of those worst case scenarios that you think of, you don't even get close to that. You straight away think the worst. So before doing anything, I like to, and it always comes down to the same sort of coping mechanisms really. And it's to think the opposite, okay? And it's to think, okay, how can I do something about this? How can I overcome this? Writing down, brain dumping, reflecting, making sense of a situation, asking other people, thinking more logically. And I was doing this more and more as problems would arise. It's things that normally would trigger me. I'm like, I wouldn't say as much now, but I used to be hypersensitive to things that were going on. And I would fall into an emotional state, but I think a lot more logically now. And I think, okay, what's the best case scenario we can get out of this? And thinking more positively and spinning it on a more positive front, rather than just allowing the worst case doomsday scenario to consume you. That way, if I think what's the best possible outcome here, I follow on that rather than thinking the doomsday scenario. So next time you think worst case scenario, I want you to flip it and think to yourself, okay, what's the best case scenario I can do here? What's the best that I can make out of this situation? How can I logically think about this? Like, instead of being an irrational bell end, how can I 110% purely focus on getting the best out of this situation? Okay, and actually not allowing your body to crumble or deplete in terms of stress and frustration and overwhelm from that situation. And I think by flipping it on its head, I found personally that I reacted a lot better to that. Okay, And writing things down is always a winner. It always makes sense. It always makes things clearer. It always makes things a lot more understanding and logical. And we don't become emotional creatures that just fly off the handle. Anyway, I hope that helped. I just wanted to share that because I was thinking about that this morning, about a couple of things that come up and how I would normally think worst case scenario, but actually I'm thinking more on the positive side, and I feel quite pumped about doing something about it. And it's just changed that pattern for me, and I hope it does the same for you.